I am on the trail of a criminal who threatens the fabric of reality as we know it in America. One who I haven't seen anyone talk about. One whose reach has infected every corner of the internet, using Facebook and Twitter to spread misinformation and take advantage of the uninformed and elderly. Yes, this is a criminal who we all know, whose reach has influenced politics on a global scale forever. That is right. The Minions? I'm arresting the Minions. Oh, you heard me correct, you ignorant masses, you, but you may be asking, what are the Minions? And to that I say, how are you so lucky? First showing up in the 2010 film Despicable Me by Universal Pictures via Studio Illumination, these little Comcast cash cows have rapidly spread across the internet to every nook and cranny they can fit their canonically 3'7" bodies into. That's right, the lovable little yellow guys who cause slapstick mischief all in the name of their evil but ultimately harmless boss. You know, right? Wrong! These abominations, these wretched creatures, are a stain in the eyes of the law, and I view it as my solemn duty to take the Minions to trial for their copious war crimes before any other lives are impacted. I can't stand to let their influence grow any further as they openly commit atrocities in the name of evil, and so, by the end of this video, I vow to send my case directly to The Hague to ensure that they pay for their crimes. So, what even is a war crime? I did a quick little 15-hour deep dive into the UN's definitions of war crimes, reading through the entirety of the Geneva Conventions and the Hague Conventions, and went down multiple Wikipedia rabbit holes to find additional protocols to eventually come to some general consensus of what a war crime is, at least according to the United Nations. War crimes are actions taken during armed conflicts that are, quote, serious violations of the laws and customs applicable in international armed conflict. Now, war crimes also contain two main elements, a contextual element and a mental element, as you can now read on screen. So, basically, war crimes are done during an armed conflict and are violations of the laws governing war, like the 1899 and 1907 Hague Conventions, and the 4 1949 Geneva Conventions, as well as a couple additional protocols, which are all done intentionally by the guilty party. Now, for the sake of argument, I'm going to say that because Gru is a Fredonian-born hardcore American nationalist that stated he cloned the Minions from the original Minions, who also serve him, which are they themselves, of course, from the Precambrian era, apparently? Well, because of this, I'm going to say that the Minions are born and bred Americans, yeehaw, for the purpose of defining international versus non-international war crimes. I'm also going to consider the Minions to be constantly under a state of declared war because Gru is a self-proclaimed supervillain, which I believe counts as a declaration of war on the entire planet. Gru also constantly has harm-inducing weapons on him, as do the Minions, so I will consider this to be a state of armed conflict, which means that by my definition, Gru isn't just a funny little Slavic guy, he's a straight-up terrorist. Now, am I going to tell or show you every single war crime? No, doing that to you would probably be a war crime in itself, so instead, I'll just reference them when relevant. Half of them would get me demonetized anyway for showing on YouTube, but joke's on YouTube, I'm too small to be monetized yet anyway. So, got him? Instead, what I'm going to do is address each war crime as it's committed chronologically and becomes relevant, so I don't waste any more time than I already have, but blah 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 blah. Enough explaining! I want to get into the real journalism. The Minions have committed crimes against Earth and her people, and I need to take them down, and you are going to do it with me. Welcome back. Going into the first Despicable Me film, the very first war crime I'd like to bring up is actually not committed by the Minions, but I'd like to establish how we'll evaluate war crimes throughout the franchise. Within the first few minutes, we learn that the Great Pyramid of Giza has been stolen and replaced by a fake. I don't care that this child almost died as a result, I care that a historical monument was defaced. This is a clear war crime according to the Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court, Article 8, titled War Crime, subsection 2, Article E4, holy shit, which states that it is a war crime if an entity commits the acts of intentionally directing attacks against buildings dedicated to religion, education, art, science, or charitable purposes, historical monuments, hospitals, and places where the sick and wounded are collected, provided that they are not military objectives. Now, I see no reason why this would be a military objective, and I would definitely call it an attack if you remove it from existence, so this is a textbook war crime. Also, I'm going to be referencing the Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court, Article 8, titled War Crimes, a lot throughout the video, so unless I specify otherwise, just assume I'm referencing this document as I highlight its many rules as we go along. Continuing on, we first meet Gru, the leader of the Minions for this time period of these films, who quickly endears himself to the audience by murdering 6 civilians. Article 8, subsection 2E1, it is a war crime too. Intentionally direct attacks against the civilian population as such or against individual civilians not directly taking part in hostilities. Another prime example of a war crime. You can't attack civilians intentionally and unnecessarily. I know the Minions didn't commit this one, but I wanted to show who their leader truly is. And soon after, we see further evidence of their deplorable, vile character that these Minions have with their penchant for friendly fire. Within just the first 10 minutes, we see 2 examples of intentional friendly fire, once with a melee weapon and another with the reckless firing of an RPG in a crowd. Now, friendly fire isn't actually classified as a war crime since it can be accidental, but it is a crime in general and is a demonstration of character of the Minions, so I'd like to include it in the report anyway. As the film develops, Gru plans to basically end the world by stealing the moon, which would kill all life on the planet. But this video isn't about him. Everyone already knows he's a terrorist. It's the Minions' asses that I want. Gru goes on to adopt a couple children who are being mistreated, but finally, at 38 minutes and 55 seconds into the first film, we see the first war crime committed by the Minions. Article 8, subsection 2E12, destroying or seizing the property of an adversary unless such destruction or seizure be imperatively demanded by the necessities of the conflict. Here we see the Minions completely unnecessarily destroy a handicapped parking space, which is both rude and a war crime. You may find me interpreting this as a war crime a bit of a reach, but if I give an inch, I'll give a mile, and the Minions aren't getting any of my inches. Anyway, starting at 44:20, we see Gru employ the children he adopted as child spies, potentially putting them into harm's way for his plans. This is in direct violation of Article 8, subsection 2E7, conscripting or enlisting children under the age of 15 years into armed forces or groups, or using them to participate actively in hostilities. Now, when looking into the actual definition of what a child soldier is, I came across the UN's definition, sourced from the 2007 Paris Principles on the Involvement of Children in Armed Conflict. It's a long quote, so I'll just put it up on screen, but the most important part to keep in mind is that it uses the phrase, used as fighters, cooks, porters, spies. It does not only refer to a child who has taken or is taking part directly in hostilities. This is a reoccurring war crime throughout the film, and is the first indisputable war crime. The Minions happily take part in this operation, and even though they did not issue the orders to employ these soldiers, they were complicit in it, so I'm going to count it. I don't care that the children end up being safe and healed Gru's childhood trauma through the joys of becoming a father. Aww, the Minions should have spoken up. For the rest of the film, there's actually no war crimes committed by the Minions, just normal crimes committed on behalf of Gru, so skipping to the second film, Despicable Me 2, we actually don't see any crimes at all committed by the Minions. In fact, it kinda seems like the Minions are the victims of this movie. As the film progresses, the Minions are kidnapped over time and subjected to ruthless biological experimentation, and are then forced to fight against Gru, who is still their leader. Article 8, subsection 2B10, subjecting persons who are in the power of an adverse party to physical mutilation or to medical or scientific experimentation. I'm considering this an international war crime since the villain is Mexican, so this, in my eyes, is an attack by Mexico against American citizens, even if those citizens are themselves terrorists. Actually, now that I think about it, forcing an enemy to fight their original faction is also a war crime. Article 8, subsection 2B25, compelling the nationals of the hostile party to take part in the operations of war directed against their own country, even if they were in the belligerent service before the commencement of the war. I almost actually feel a little bad for the Minions. I mean, sure, they've made their mistakes, but they were just following orders, and I'm sure that's a situation that's never happened before. Maybe I was just too harsh, but I need to keep going for the sake of justice. Okay, moving on to Despicable Me 3. 15 minutes in, we actually see that the Minions go on strike and quit following Gru in search of a more evil leader. Yes! Finally, now that the Minions have autonomy, I'm sure that they're going to do terrible things, proving once and for all that they're the depraved, repugnant monstrosities I know they are. We soon observe that the first thing they do with their freedom is hijack a broadcast to sing in a talent show and are then jailed for most of the movie? I mean, okay, well, even if you consider them going onto the talent show to be broadcast signal intrusion or trespassing, both are hardly malicious crimes. Even when they escape jail, they do so without harming any guards, so... maybe I was wrong about them. maybe they're not as bad as I thought they were. I mean, they were complicit in war crimes, but as an American citizen, aren't we all? And the minions even ended up saving lives. That's more than most of us could say. There's only 2 films left in the franchise at the time of recording, with Despicable Me 4 coming out today, actually, which I plan to see in theaters the moment I'm done cataloging these past crimes. But all that's left for now is the 2 Minions movies, so I guess I'll get to learn more about them? I'm actually kind of excited to watch these 2. I mean, look at these little guys goofing around. They're kind of cute in a way. Starting the film The Minions, we see that the Minions were originally single-celled organisms. Okay, kind of weird, but so they just evolved more cells over time? Whatever, we continue. 3 minutes and 15 seconds into the film, we see the Minions kill a T-Rex, but that is not a war crime. War crimes haven't even been invented yet, and it was an accident. You could even describe it as hunting in a weird way, so no crime here. They're pretty fine. Okay, what else do we have here? The Minions continue to be immortal and survive all the way up to the beginning of mankind and beyond. 4 minutes and 34 seconds in, we see that the Minions now serve a slave owner holding a whip, and then they commit regicide and genocide, killing their leader and upwards of 100+ civilians who were also slaves they lorded over. Article 8, subsection 2E1, I've already stated this one. They're Egyptian civilians at this point, so presumably this is in violation of non-international war, but like, it was an accident, you know? The genocide part, not the enslavement part, but wait, no, let's just see what else they get up to. Let's just see what else. In 1812, they serve Napoleon and take part in actual warfare, operating weaponry before being trapped in a cave from 1812 to 1968. Wait, they can serve actual historical world leaders and conquerors. What do you mean the narrator said they serve the most evil person they can at any point in time? The Minions are shown working for Vlad the Impaler? I was blinded by a glimmer of hope in my eye that our children haven't been tainted by these accursed beasts of hell. Not only have the Minions canonically served both an Egyptian slave master and Napoleon, who reinstated slavery in France, but they've also been implied to have served every major evil throughout the entire history of man, up to 1812 when the French army heroically drove them into a cave in a frozen wasteland during their failed invasion of Russia. This means that the Minions probably served Attila the Hun, Genghis Khan, Julius Caesar. Did the Minions crucify Jesus? We continue my duty to bring light to their crimes and take them to court, and we start again at 21 minutes and 45 seconds into the movie. Article 8, subsection 2B1, intentionally directing attacks against the civilian population. We've already read the rest of this one. Here we see the Minions openly slaughter 6 cops with a rocket launcher, causing a fatal crash of their vehicles. This is an act of international war because as of 1968, the Minions are still French citizens and are currently illegal immigrants who just murdered a bunch of cops. At 42:58 in the film, we see the Minions run a covert operation in England where they encounter 3 guards, and after hypnotizing these guards, they force them to strip naked and dance for their amusement. Article 8, subsection 2B21 and 2C2 read that it's a war crime to commit outrages upon personal dignity, in particular humiliating and degrading treatment. These articles pertain specifically to the treatment of prisoners of war, which these guards are considered as they are captured by the Minions after laying down their arms. You'd think the Minions' bloodlust would be sated by now, but at 1 hour, 3 minutes, and 30 seconds in, we see the Minions actively attempt regicide of the Queen of England, and then at 1:14:20, we see Kevin unalive bomb himself to successfully kill the Queen of England. I'm not even joking. This is legitimately how the Minions movie ends. I'm considering this an act of non-international war because early in the movie, we actually see the Minion named Bob pull the sword from the stone and be named King of England, which would make the Minions British citizens, which also marks a wonderful continuation of Britain's time-honored tradition of being led by vicious war criminals. So, we've established that these hollow-hearted war criminals have been responsible for countless war crimes under both fascist leaders and operating as an independent group, but we still have one more movie. How could they possibly get any worse? In the film Minions 2: The Rise of Gru, it takes place 8 years after the first Minions movie, where the Minions have been serving Gru in America for 8 years. It only takes 5 years of residency to gain citizenship in America, so this is the moment where the Minions finally become considered American citizens. Once again, yeehaw. Wait, if the Minions assist the most diabolical plots in human history, and have now moved to America, they wouldn't. They just wouldn't. That's actually my bad. I'm sorry. Okay, so the final war crime of the entire franchise takes place in this film 40 minutes and 30 seconds in, when the minions hijack a plane full of civilians. Article 8, subsection 2C3, taking of hostages makes it a war crime to take civilians hostage, but the real war crime here is that this single act made me have to read through yet another legal document this act violates, which is the 1970 Hague Convention for the Suppression of Unlawful Seizure of Aircraft, which goes into detail about it being a war crime to hijack a civilian airliner, especially when said civilians are aboard. So, just to be clear, the Minions have a canon history of hijacking flights full of civilians, have a proven history of unalive bombing themselves and targeting civilians, and were in the US post-1968. Now, I'm not saying they did do it, but that is every single war crime committed in all 5 Minions movies, so that's the end, right? The total number of war crimes committed by the Minions is 6, or technically 7 if you count them being complicit with Gru's child soldiers. And they also did commit many other crimes, including regicide and theft, which aren't considered war crimes, but that's all the crimes they've done. You would think! But no, these crimes are only the ones perpetuated by the media. These are the ones filmed by Illumination Studios to be exposed to the masses, but it runs so much deeper. You see, I haven't even begun to cover their real crimes. Crimes that ruin the lives of millions of people in the real world. My case is only just developing. You and I are in this together now. You can't leave now. We have to see this through to the end. In Minions 2, we see that this supervillain has been chosen by God for the sole purpose of destroying the Minions, and if even the Christian God is willing to empower evil for the sake of destroying these horrific abominations, then their influence must be far deeper than we can imagine. Toys, ice cream, music, even other media. I was playing GeoGuessr, and I saw a mural of the Minions in both Mexico and the Philippines, which is just Asian Mexico. The media has lied to us. Just look at Facebook and you'll see countless unfunny memes peddled by your grandmas and your aunts, who all sell essential oils and MLM schemes. These memes infect the minds of their hosts, perpetuating the agenda of the Minions, rendering the American people weak and complacent. They've been infecting the media for decades now. No wonder they hijacked that broadcast. How could we have known that Despicable Me 3 would be the start of our downfall? Despicable Me 3, the worst of the films! While compiling this evidence, another entry was made in the franchise, namely Despicable Me 4. I had to do my due diligence, so I boldly grabbed my camera and notepad, as well as my extensive case of legal documents, and drove to the theater to add more fuel to the fire. I arrived to that theater, expecting there to be more war crimes to catalog for the case, but I was honestly surprised, as there were no new war crimes to catalog. Sure, there was some public indecency, theft, friendly fire, and a government-sponsored super soldier eugenics program run by the deep state, but that's to be expected. However, there was this one shot of Gru in a polo and slacks at 2316, and just, ugh. Although all equally immoral, these still don't classify as war crimes. But fear not, we're in this together, and I have my case file. I'm on my way now to The Hague to deliver the killing blow to the Minions once and for all. Although I do admit it was strange with their lack of crimes in the most recent film. It's almost like they got me to drive there for nothing. I drove there. I came to them, which means... What was that? Wait, no!
Excuse me, Spider. Okay. Okay. Where the fuck am Oh, there's gotta be someone. Hello? No, please.